What if the very foundation of your world was built on a lie? A betrayal stretching back through generations. Her captured shadow, a relic of forgotten magic, just exposed the Alpha's darkest secret. A pact made with ancient evils, sacrificing innocent lives for unimaginable power. Prepare to uncover a truth so chilling, it threatens to shatter everything you thought you knew. The artifact had no true shape, only the suggestion of one. It hovered above the stone dais like a wound in the air, neither light nor darkness, but something bruised between. The elders called it the captured shadow, though no one alive could remember who had first dared to bind it, or what it had cost them. Only that it remembered everything. A low hum pulsed through the cavern, vibrating in bone and blood. Wolves, shifted and unshifted alike, felt it crawl beneath their skin, stirring instincts older than language. Torches guttered. The runes etched into the chamber walls bled a dim silver glow, reacting as if afraid. Alpha Mailer Thorn stood at the center of it all, spine rigid, jaw locked so tightly the tendons in his neck stood out like cords. He did not look at the shadow. That alone sent a ripple of unease through the pack. Mailer had never feared anything. Not rival alphas, not war, not the spirits whispered about in old songs. He was dominance made flesh. Yet now, his gaze fixed on the stone floor, as though meeting the shadow's attention would finish something he had spent his entire life outrunning. "End this," Mailer commanded, his voice sharp, absolute. "The artifact is unstable." Elder Isavel, bent with age but unbroken in presence, did not move. Her blind eye wept blackened tears, reacting to the shadow's awakening. "It has already begun," she said softly. "You summoned it yourself, Alpha. You do not get to silence it now." A murmur passed through the gathered wolves. They had been told the shadow was a relic. Dangerous, yes, but controllable. A tool to uncover an external threat, a traitor beyond the pack. That was the lie Mailer had fed them. The shadow disagreed, shifted. The hum deepened into a vibration that rattled teeth. The air thickened, heavy with iron and ash. Then, images bled outward, not projected on stone, but carved directly into the minds of every wolf present. A forest ancient and untouched. Moonlight silvered the leaves. 12 wolves knelt in a circle, their fur matted with blood. Not enemy blood but their own. At the center stood a man who bore Mailer's face so closely it stole breath from the watching pack. Gasps echoed through the chamber. "The first thorn," someone whispered. The shadow did not linger. The vision fractured, time splintering violently. Wolves screaming. A pit dug into sacred ground. Innocents dragged forward, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror as a sigil burned into the earth beneath them. Wolf souls offered willingly. The shadow seemed to hum, its presence pressing like claws against the mind. Power taken. It sealed. Mailer staggered back a step. "No!" he snarled, the word ripping from his chest. "Lies." Twisted echoes. The shadow pulsed brighter, angrier. The images sharpened. Each sacrifice fed something unseen. With every life taken, a blackened current poured into the thorn bloodline, threading itself through generations like rot in a root system. Strength beyond nature. Authority that bent wills. Victory after victory, bought and paid for in silence. The pack watched their own history rewritten before their eyes. Wars they had celebrated. Rivals crushed. Loyalty enforced not by honor, but by something hungry. A young huntress, Rhea Vale, clutched her stomach as understanding slammed into her. "The sickness," she whispered. "The stillborn litters. The way our elders fade too soon." The shadow responded with another vision. Child coughing black foam. A warrior collapsing mid-hunt as something unseen tore outward from his chest. Wolves disappearing into the forest, never found. Not taken by enemies but claimed. The debt was no longer dormant. It was coming due. Mailer roared, the sound feral, raw. Power flared from him in a violent wave that cracked stone and sent several wolves to their knees. His eyes burned an unnatural gold, veined with black. "I did not make the pact," he thundered. "I inherited it." The shadow did not argue. Instead it showed choice. A younger Mailer, kneeling before the same dais years ago. Elders warning him. A ritual he could have refused. Blood offered again, not demanded but given, to strengthen the bond, to secure his rule. Silence fell like a burial shroud. Victim or accomplice? The question hung unanswered, heavy as fate. Fear began to fracture into anger. Whispers rose. First uncertain, then sharp. He knew. He fed it. He let it take them. Mailer's gaze snapped to the crowd, dominance surging as he reached for the invisible chains that had always answered him. Some wolves stiffened, then faltered. For the first time his control did not land cleanly. The shadow had changed something fundamental. Elder Isavel straightened, ancient strength flooding her frail frame. "The pact was never meant to endure," she said, voice ringing. "It was designed to unravel, to expose itself when the bloodline grew too arrogant to hide it." The shadow dimmed, its hum lowering, waiting. Somewhere in the pack, a few wolves felt something stir, dreams they hadn't understood before. Songs their grandmothers had hummed without knowing why. Knowledge waking up, slow and dangerous. Unity or annihilation. Mailer felt it slipping. And for the first time in his reign, fear, not of death but of truth, curled cold around his heart. The captured shadow had remembered. And now so did they all. The cavern did not empty after the shadow dimmed. No one moved. The captured shadow hovered lower now, its edges softening, as if it were breathing, listening. It had spoken its truth and retreated just enough to let the damage bloom. Mailer Thorn stood at the center of the dais like a cracked monument. His power still bled into the air, heavy and oppressive, but it no longer carried certainty. Wolves who once bowed without thinking now hesitated, their instincts snarling in confusion. That hesitation was everything. "Look at them," Mailer snapped, rounding on Elder Isavel. "You've poisoned their minds." "I unveiled them," Isavel replied. The poison was already there. A low growl rolled through the pack, not unified, not obedient. Fractured, broken into individual voices. The sound scraped Mailer raw. He lifted his hands, palms open in a gesture that had once calmed riots and ended blood feuds. "This pact, if it exists, it binds me as much as it binds you. The debt comes for my blood first." Lie. The shadow pulsed faintly, and several wolves flinched as understanding sharpened. Rhea Vale stepped forward before fear could reclaim her. Her voice shook, but she did not stop. "Then why were our children taken first?" The words cut deeper than claws. Mailer's gaze snapped to her, dominance flaring hard enough to make weaker wolves bow reflexively. Rhea dropped to one knee, then forced herself upright, teeth clenched, legs trembling. The pack saw it. The alpha's power faltered. Mailer's eyes darkened. "You forget your place." "No," Rhea whispered. "I finally remember it." The sound that followed was not a howl. It was the sharp crack of authority shattering. Mailer moved. In a blur of speed. He crossed the dais and struck Rhea across the face, sending her skidding across the stone. Gasps erupted. Someone shouted her name. Blood streaked the floor. The shadow flared, angry now. Power surged wildly. The air screaming as ancestral magic writhed against its bindings. Mailer turned, snarling at the artifact. "Stay silent." Did not. The cavern filled with whispers, not loud, not commanding, but persistent. Echoes of voices long dead, murmuring truths that slipped past dominance and into bone. Blood given. Blood owed. Blood rising. Rhea struggled to her feet, vision swimming. A tall warrior caught her. Kale Draven, scarred, broad-shouldered, once Maelor's most loyal enforcer. His hands trembled as he steadied her. "I felt it," Kale said hoarsely. "When my brother vanished. I felt something tear loose." Others began to speak. A healer whose remedies no longer worked. A hunter whose dreams were filled with pits and chanting wolves. A mother who woke each night hearing her child howl in a voice that wasn't theirs. The pack's pain stacked higher and higher until it became impossible to ignore. Maelor backed away, breath coming hard. "You are feeding it," he warned. "Your doubt strengthens the shadow." Isavel's blind eye fixed unerringly on him. "No. Your fear does." The Alpha's snarl was feral. "Enough." He slammed his palm into the dais. The runes ignited, not silver but black. The old binding circle roared to life, chains of ancestral magic lashing outward and wrapping around the captured shadow. The artifact shrieked, not in pain but in fury, as Maelor forced his will into it. The cavern shook. Wolves screamed as pressure slammed into their chests. Several collapsed, coughing, blood trickling from their noses and ears. The debt surged violently, siphoning strength to fuel Maelor's gambit. Rhea cried out as something yanked at her soul, then stopped. A warmth bloomed instead. She gasped, eyes flying open. Others felt it too. Not the Alpha's power. Something older. Something that did not dominate but answered. The shadow cracked. Not physically but spiritually. A seam split through it, releasing a pulse of moon-white light that tore through Maelor's bindings like mist. He screamed as the backlash slammed into him, throwing him across the dais. He hit stone hard, gasping. Silence crashed down. In that stillness a howl rose, not loud but steady. One voice, then another, then many. Wolves howling not in obedience, but in mourning and resolve. Rhea stood at the center of them, glowing faintly, eyes silvered with reflected moonlight though the cavern roof was sealed. "I dreamed of this," she whispered. "Since I was a child. A shadow that remembered. And a choice." Kale dropped to one knee beside her, not in submission but solidarity. "So did I," he admitted. Across the chamber others nodded. A small group, no more than a dozen, drawn together by shared visions, shared awakenings. They felt the same thing pulsing between them, a fragile thread of resistance the pact had never anticipated. Elder Isavel smiled for the first time in years. "The pact cannot be broken by a single will," she said. "It requires many, unbound, unafraid." Maelor pushed himself upright, blood streaking his temple. His expression was no longer authoritative. It was desperate, wild. "You would doom us all," he rasped. "If the pact collapses without a new anchor, it will devour the pack." Rhea met his gaze, steady despite the tremor in her limbs. "Then stop feeding it." For a moment, just a moment, something like regret flickered across Maelor's face. Then it vanished. He straightened, power coiling tight and vicious around him. "Guards," he commanded. Only a few moved. A few. Rhea's breath caught. Maelor's lips peeled back from his teeth. "Very well. I will remind you why I am Alpha." The shadow dimmed, conserving itself. Pack braced. The war had begun, not against an enemy beyond the forest, but against the blood in their own veins. And somewhere deep beneath the stone, the debt stirred, aware now that its silence was ending. The first disappearance happened before dawn. No alarm howl. No sign of struggle. One moment Lisa Morin, a quiet gatherer who rarely spoke above a murmur, had been asleep beside the hearth in the western den. The next, her bed was cold, her scent fractured, as though something had peeled her presence out of the world rather than dragged her away. By sunrise there were 3 more. The pack gathered in the outer ring, tension snapping like frostbitten branches. No alpha call summoned them this time. They came because instinct demanded it, because fear had learned their names. Rhea stood among the awakened, her skin prickling as whispers crawled through her mind. Not voices exactly. More like pressure. Hunger. "It's not Mailer," Kale said quietly beside her. "Not directly." "No," Rhea agreed. "It's the debt." The captured shadow hovered at the edge of the gathering, dimmer than before, its surface marred by hairline fractures that leaked faint moonlight. Felt diminished. As though every truth it revealed cost it something. Elder Isavel approached it slowly, her staff clicking against stone. "The pact was never passive," she murmured. "It fed on belief, on obedience, on silence." A low rumble rolled beneath their feet. The ground itself seemed to shudder, and somewhere deep below, something shifted. That night Rhea dreamed. She stood in a vast root-choked cavern beneath the forest, the air thick with decay and old blood. At its center coiled a shape too large to name, neither wolf nor spirit, but something fused from both. Faces writhed along its surface, mouths opening in soundless howls. Blood given, it breathed. Blood owed. Rhea woke screaming. Others did too. The awakened gathered in secret near the river gorge, drawn together by shared terror and a growing certainty that this was no longer about Mailer alone. The debt had a body now, or was becoming one. "The pact made it real," Kale said grimly. "Fed it generation after generation. And now it's starving," Rhea replied. Elder Isavel arrived before dawn, leaning heavily on her staff. "The thing beneath us is not merely a spirit," she said. "It is a construct, a binding made flesh by sacrifice. It will not release the pack willingly." "Then we destroy it," a young warrior growled. Isavel shook her head. "You cannot kill a debt. You can only pay it, or refuse it." The words landed like a curse. By midday Mailer struck. He did not confront the awakened directly. Instead, he tightened the pack's borders, recalled all hunters, and invoked the right of absolute obedience, an ancient alpha law no ruler had dared use in living memory. The effect was immediate. Wolves doubled over as dominance crushed into them like a storm. Some screamed. Others went still, eyes glazed, will stripped bare. Rhea dropped to her knees, breath torn from her lungs. She felt the alpha's command claw at her mind. Submit. Forget. Wait. Something answered. Not dominance. Defiance. The faint moon-white glow surged through her veins, steadying her breath. Around her, a handful of others resisted too. Kale, Isavel, and several more whose eyes burned silver instead of gold. Mailer felt it. He turned toward them, fury igniting his features. "You think yourselves chosen." Rhea forced herself upright. "We are awake." The alpha's laughter was harsh, unhinged. "Then you will be made examples." Before he could act, the earth split. A fissure tore open near the eastern ridge, vomiting blackened mist that reeked of rot and grief. From it rose a malformed shape, half wolf, half shadow, its body stitched together from spectral remnants and ancestral markings. The debt had sent an emissary. Wolves screamed and scattered as the thing howled, its voice layered with dozens of others. It lunged, dragging a guard into the fissure before anyone could react. Mailer froze. For the first time, terror eclipsed his rage. "It's accelerating," Isavel whispered. "The pact is collapsing too fast. It's consuming what it can." Rhea stared into the fissure, heart hammering. She felt a pull like the thing recognized her. "Then we're running out of time," Kale said. Rhea nodded, jaw set. "We need to find the anchor." Isavel's blind eye lifted toward the ancient mountains beyond the forest. "There was a failsafe," she said slowly. "A counter-binding. Buried where the pact was first sealed." Mailer recovered then, snarling. You will not leave this territory. Rhea met his gaze, grief and resolve burning together. You can't stop what's already begun. The fissure pulsed, widening. The debt was no longer waiting. It was hunting. They left before the Alpha could seal the borders completely. Mist clung low to the forest floor as Rhea and the others slipped through the ravine paths known only to hunters and ghosts. Kale led, broad shoulders tense, senses stretched thin. Behind them, Elder Isavel moved with surprising speed, as if the land itself urged her on. The captured shadow followed. It did not float now. It dragged itself through the air, fractured edges shedding faint moonlight like blood from an open wound. Each step away from the packlands weakened it, yet it persisted, drawn toward something older than the debt it had exposed. The shadow won't survive much longer, Rhea said softly. Isavel nodded. Truth was never meant to endure, only to be passed on. They reached the mountains by nightfall, jagged stone teeth rising against a starless sky. At their base yawned a cavern sealed by time and sigils half eroded by centuries of wind and snow. The place reeked of old bargains. As they crossed the threshold, the air thickened, heavy with memory. Rhea's vision blurred, and suddenly she was not herself, she was many. The first thorns knelt again, blood soaking into the earth. But this time the shadow slowed the vision, forcing them to see. The pact had not been forged from desperation alone. It had been ambition. The ancestors had wanted more than survival. They wanted dominance without challenge, loyalty without question. So they bound a fragment of the wild itself, something that should never have worn form, and fed its souls until it learned hunger. And this, Isavel said, voice echoing strangely, is where they planned their escape. At the cavern's heart stood a stone altar split clean down the center. Runes of refusal, old, defiant, were carved beneath newer sigils of submission. The counterbinding, Kale breathed. Rhea stepped closer. Her skin burned as she approached, the silver glow beneath her flesh answering the markings. Knowledge flooded her, unbidden, precise. It was never finished, she said. They were afraid. Isavel smiled sadly. To complete it, they would have had to give back what they stole. The ground trembled. Behind them, the captured shadow shuddered violently. A deep, resonant growl rolled through the cavern as the debt felt them. Too late. The stone floor cracked, and black mist poured in like floodwater. The construct forced its way through the mountain, its massive form scraping against rock, faces writhing, mouths screaming. Maelor's voice echoed from the entrance. Step away from the altar. He emerged from the shadows, power coiled tight and terrible around him. Blood streaked his arms, fresh sacrifices, not yet claimed. A last, desperate offering to slow the debt's hunger. You can't finish it, he said, almost pleading. If you do, the pack will break. Rhea turned to him, heart aching. It's already broken. The construct surged forward, drawn to the altar like a moth to flame. The runes flared, refusal battling submission, old magic screaming as it tore against itself. Isavel planted her staff into the ground. The counterbinding requires a living anchor, she said. One untainted by the pact. Silence. Rhea understood instantly. Kale did too. His hand closed around her wrist. No. It has to be someone the debt recognizes, Rhea whispered. Someone it tried and failed to claim. The construct reared back, shrieking. Maelor staggered. You would sacrifice yourself. Rhea met his gaze, unflinching. No. I would refuse. She stepped onto the altar. The stone split further, light and shadow colliding violently. Pain tore through her body as the magic latched on, testing her will, her memories, her blood. Submit, the debt hissed. Rhea screamed and did not bend. Around her, the others joined hands, voices rising in a howl that was not command but communion. The cavern shook as the counterbinding ignited, runes burning away centuries of submission. The captured shadow screamed once, then shattered. Moonlight exploded outward, tearing through the construct, ripping faces free, unraveling the thing thread by thread. Maelor fell to his knees, power bleeding out of him like smoke. The debt convulsed, screaming, not in rage but in loss. It was being denied. The cavern collapsed inward as the binding sealed. When the dust settled, Rhea lay motionless on the altar, the silver glow fading from her skin. Kale rushed to her side, shaking, desperate. "Rhea, please." Her chest rose. Once. She opened her eyes. The debt was not gone, but it was no longer feeding. Had been caged. Morning came without ceremony. No alpha howl greeted the dawn. No surge of dominance rolled through the land to snap wolves into alignment. The silence felt wrong, like a missing limb, but also strangely light. They returned to the packlands to find the borders unguarded. Maelor had not fled. He knelt in the central clearing where judgment had always been passed, wrists bound with iron etched in refusal runes. His power, once vast and crushing, flickered weakly, unstable like a flame starved of air. The pack gathered slowly, cautiously. Faces that once reflected certainty now held something raw. Grief, fury, and the terrifying edge of possibility. Rhea stood at the front beside Kale and Elder Isavel. She swayed slightly, still drained, but her eyes were clear. "The debt is bound," Isavel announced. "Not destroyed. It will starve unless fed." A murmur rippled outward. "And the cost?" a hunter demanded. Isavel's blind eye fixed on Maelor. "There is always a cost." Maelor lifted his head. His voice when he spoke was hoarse. "The power is gone. The dominance you feared, it's broken. I can no longer compel you." Silence answered him. Some wolves looked relieved. Others looked betrayed all over again. "You knew," Rhea said quietly. "You chose to continue." Maelor swallowed. "I thought I could outlast it. Control it. And when it took our people," Kale demanded. Maelor's jaw tightened. "I told myself it was necessary." The words sounded hollow even to him. Judgment did not come swiftly. The pack debated for hours, voices rising, fracturing, colliding. Some demanded exile, others death. A few, broken by years of loyalty, argued for mercy. In the end, it was Rhea who spoke. "The pact survives because it binds blood to authority," she said. "End both." The decision settled like stone. Maelor Thorn was stripped of his name, his rank, his claim. No execution. No exile beyond the forest. Instead, he was bound as watcher, chained to the old altar site beneath the mountains, tasked with maintaining the seal that caged the debt. A living reminder of the cost of power taken without consent. As he was led away, Maelor looked back at Rhea once. "You've doomed us to uncertainty," he said softly. Rhea met his gaze. "We were already doomed to obedience." That night the pack gathered, not in hierarchy but in circles. Decisions were made by voice, not dominance. It was slow, messy, honest. The sickness did not vanish overnight. The missing did not return. But no new disappearances followed. For the first time in generations, the land slept without hunger pressing beneath it. Rhea sat at the edge of the clearing, exhaustion settling deep in her bones. Kale joined her, offering water. "You should rest," he said. "I'm afraid to sleep," she admitted. "What if the debt finds another way?" Kale shook his head. "Then we face it together." She leaned into him, the weight of leadership pressing in unfamiliar ways. She had not asked for this, not the visions, not the awakening, not the burden of hope. But it had chosen her anyway. Above them the moon rose, unclaimed. Freedom did not arrive gently. It came like a storm after drought, violent, uneven, exposing everything the ground had hidden for years. Without Malor's dominance stitching the pack together, old fractures surfaced fast. Disputes over territory flared. Hunts failed because coordination had once been enforced rather than learned. Wolves who had relied on compulsion now struggled to hear one another at all. Choice, it turned out, had teeth. Rhea felt it most at night. Sleep brought no peace. Only half dreams where the debt pressed against its cage, testing, probing. Did not rage anymore. It waited. Patient. Clever. She's burning out, Kale told Isavel quietly as they watched Rhea stagger after a council gathering. Yes, Isavel agreed. Because the pack keeps looking to her like she's a crown. Rhea overheard them and laughed weakly. I never wanted to rule. Good, Isavel said. Neither should you. The sickness lingered too. Healers worked tirelessly, but some wounds refused to close. Spiritual scars etched too deep. Wolves who had lost kin to the debt carried an emptiness that no ritual could fill. Anger festered, turning inward then outward. One night blood was spilled. A brawl broke out near the river gorge. 2 hunters fighting over accusations of hoarded supplies. It escalated fast. Too fast. By the time Kale arrived, one lay broken on the stones, ribs crushed, breath rattling. The pack stared in horror. This violence had no alpha behind it. It was theirs. We don't know how to be free, someone whispered. Rhea felt the truth of it slice through her. That same night, the captured shadow's absence became noticeable. Without it, there was no shared memory to anchor them, no external reminder of what they'd escaped. Doubt crept in like rot. And then the dreams changed. Rhea woke one dawn with blood on her hands. Not real blood. Memory blood. She staggered to Isavel's den, heart hammering. It's learning, she said. The debt. It's adapting to the cage. Isavel's face tightened. Then we must do what the ancestors never did. What? Teach the pack to remember without artifacts. Without fear. The solution was slow. Painfully slow. Story circles replaced command gatherings. Wolves spoke of the past, not as legend but as confession. Names of the lost were carved into stone. Children were taught why obedience had once felt safe, and why it had nearly destroyed them. Left. A small faction broke away entirely, unable to live without hierarchy. They vanished into the eastern forests, bitterness trailing behind them like smoke. Rhea feared they would become something worse. One evening, Kale found her standing at the edge of the territory, staring into the dark. You can't carry this alone, he said. I know, she replied. But I don't know how to set it down. Kale took her hands, calloused, steady. Then let it be shared. That's the difference now. The ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. Far below, the debt shifted. Restless, diminished but not dead. Scars refused to fade. But scars, Rhea realized, were proof of survival. They returned at dusk. No warning howl. No formal challenge. Just a shift in the forest. Birds scattering, the wind pulling sharp and cold as unfamiliar scents bled across the borders. Rhea felt it before anyone spoke. The ground tensioned beneath her feet, the way it had before the captured shadow first awakened. They're back, she said. Kale was already moving, signaling scouts outward. Not all of them. By the time the pack gathered at the eastern tree line, the splinter wolves emerged from the shadows. Leaner, harder, eyes burning with a feral edge that had nothing to do with hunger. At their front stood Isser Hale, once a mediator, now something sharpened by resentment. His posture radiated confidence, but not the steady kind born of trust. This was authority seized, not granted. You look smaller, Isser called out. Quieter. Rhea stepped forward, refusing to let Kale shield her. We stopped feeding the debt. Isser smiled, and it chilled her. We didn't. The words landed like a blade between ribs. Behind him, his wolves shifted uneasily, their auras warped, threads of shadow coiling faintly around them. Not the old dominance. Something crude. Improvised. You couldn't live without a master, Kale growled. Isser's eyes flicked to him. We chose a different one. The ground trembled. Rhea felt the cage beneath the mountains answer. Not break, but resonate. The debt stirred, recognizing familiar patterns. You made a new pact, Rhea whispered. Isser shrugged. We learned from the thorn's mistake. Smaller sacrifices. Voluntary. His gaze hardened. Efficient. Gasps rippled through the pack. You'll doom us all, Isavel said, stepping forward, staff raised. The debt will never be satisfied. Isser's smile faded. Then we'll use it until it devours itself. Before anyone could respond, his wolves moved. Fast, coordinated, fueled by borrowed power. The clash was brutal and chaotic. This wasn't war as the pack remembered it. This was desperation weaponized. Rhea fought beside Kale, silver light flaring instinctively as she drove back a wolf whose eyes were too black, too empty. Each strike sent echoes through her bones, as though the debt watched through borrowed eyes. The fight ended abruptly. Not with victory but with withdrawal. Isser signaled retreat, melting back into the forest like smoke. His final words drifted back on the wind. Freedom always creates monsters. You just chose a slower one. Silence followed, heavy, accusing. Rhea sagged, breath ragged. This is my fault. Kale gripped her shoulders. No. This is the cost of choice. That night, the debt pressed harder against its cage. Cracks spiderwebbed through the binding, not from force but from division. Rhea knelt at the altar site, hands trembling as she felt it test her resolve. You can't save everyone, Isavel said gently behind her. Rhea bowed her head. But I can't stop trying. Somewhere in the dark, Isser's howl rose. Warped, powerful, wrong. The reckoning was no longer contained. The splinter pack did not strike the borders first. They went after the unprotected. A lone forager vanished near the salt flats. 2 elders were found days later by the river, alive, but hollowed, their eyes dull, spirits scraped thin as parchment. The wounds on their bodies were shallow. The damage beneath was not. They're refining it, Kale said grimly after the healers finished. Learning how to take without killing. Rhea felt sick. Each report tightened the invisible thread between her and the cage beneath the mountains. The debt responded to every new offering, swelling, pressing, cleverer than before. Not stronger but smarter. They're using mercy as camouflage, Isavel said. Leaving survivors to spread fear. The pack gathered that night, voices sharp with grief and anger. Cries for retaliation rose fast. Demands to hunt Isser's wolves down and end them before the debt grew bold enough to tear free entirely. Rhea listened. Too closely. If she spoke now they would follow. Not because they trusted her wisdom but because they wanted permission. That realization frightened her more than the debt ever had. We can't become them, she said finally. If we answer brutality with domination, we recreate the cycle. A warrior slammed his fist into the ground. And if we do nothing, we let them keep feeding it. Silence fractured the clearing. That night Rhea dreamed again, but this time she was not alone. She stood at the edge of the cage, silver light pulsing weakly from her chest. Across the bars coiled the debt, its form more defined now, less monstrous, more familiar. It wore Isser's face. Mercy is inefficient, it whispered. Authority is cleaner. Rhea woke choking on rage. By dawn she had made her decision. They would hunt but not conquer. The pack moved in small voluntary units, guided by trust instead of command. Kale led one, Rhea another. Isavel stayed behind, guarding the altar, maintaining the fragile seal. They found the splinter pack at the ruins of an old watchtower, symbols scorched into stone, blood drying in ritual lines. Isser stood waiting. "You came eventually," he said calmly. "Good. This ends tonight." The fight was swift and terrible. Isser's power lashed wildly, uncontrolled but devastating. Wolves fell. The debt surged, roaring approval through the binding. Rhea faced Isser alone. "You could have stayed," she said, breath ragged. "You could have helped us rebuild." Isser laughed bitterly. "Rebuild weakness. I chose certainty." They clashed. Silver against shadow, refusal against hunger. Rhea felt the debt claw at her through Isser, offering strength if she would only take control. For one terrible moment she considered it. Then she remembered the circles. The stories. The scars. Rhea stepped back and lowered her guard. Isser hesitated. That hesitation saved him, and doomed everything else. Kale struck from the side, shattering the ritual focus Isser carried. The debt howled, not in pain but in loss, as the splinter pack's connection severed violently. Isser collapsed screaming. The remaining splinter wolves fled, bondless, terrified. Rhea knelt beside Isser as his power bled out of him. "This is mercy," she said softly. "And it ends here." They did not execute him. They bound him alive to the outer ring of the cage, sealing the last fracture with a living refusal. The debt screamed once more, then went quiet. Too quiet. Rhea stood trembling, bloodied, exhausted. She had chosen restraint and weaponized it. She wasn't sure yet what that made her. For the first time in generations, the forest was quiet. Not peace. Not freedom. Just silence. The debt, once roaring, clawing and demanding, had withdrawn. Its presence was still palpable beneath the mountains, but it pulsed faintly now, dormant yet aware, waiting for the tiniest fracture in the pack's resolve. Wolves paused mid-step, sniffing the air, sensing the absence of hunger where fear had always lingered. Rhea walked among them. The pack moved cautiously, as if each footfall carried weight of judgment. She felt the scars in the land, the twisted alleys where the splinter wolves had practiced their cruelty, the silent, hollowed corners where the debt had claimed its victims. Kale flanked her, shoulders tense, eyes scanning. "It's too quiet," he said. "They're waiting." "They always are," Rhea whispered. "But the pack survived it. That counts for something." Elder Isavel approached, staff tapping against the stone floor. "You have bound what could have destroyed you," she said. "But look at them." Her gaze swept over the gathering, wounded, wary, unsure. "You've changed the pack as much as the debt ever could." Rhea nodded. Her chest ached with exhaustion, not physical but the weight of responsibility. The pack was free, yes, but free in a way they had never imagined. No alpha to command, no debt to feed. Just choice, and the terrifying unknown of what to do with it. A young wolf approached hesitantly. Nira Solin, barely out of her first shift as a hunter, eyes wide. "Rhea, what do we do now?" Rhea smiled faintly, brushing ash from her sleeve. "We remember. Teach. We build. And we never forget the debt." The pack listened, truly listened. And for the first time, decisions were made in circles, voices rising not in fear or obedience, but in discussion and debate. Arguments flared, compromises formed, laughter mingled with grief. But even as the pack began to heal, Rhea sensed the cage beneath the mountains shifting. Not violently, but something had changed in the debt. Dormant, yes, but alive, still calculating, still patient. A reminder that vigilance must endure even in freedom. That night Rhea dreamt again. The captured shadow appeared, Not threatening, not violent, but calm. Its fractured edges shimmered softly in silver light. "You have resisted," it whispered in a chorus of voices, old and young, alive and gone. "But vigilance will always be required." Rhea woke, heart pounding, knowing it was right. The debt could be starved, controlled, even understood, but it would never be destroyed. Kale rose beside her, sensing her unease. "You're thinking too far ahead." "No," she said, voice steady. "I'm thinking clearly. The pack has survived hunger, betrayal, and war. But freedom is different. Freedom asks questions we're not used to answering." A howl rose in the distance. Not commanding, not a threat, but a call. Wolves answered it. Scattered voices harmonizing into a song of remembrance and warning. And somewhere beneath the stone, the debt pulsed faintly, listening. It was not finished. But neither were they. The forest breathed again. Not in relief, not in joy, but in recognition. Every leaf, every stone, every whispering wind seemed to echo the pack's hard-won survival. For generations the land had carried the weight of the debt, its hunger, its terror, but now it pulsed faintly, a heartbeat in sync with those who remained. Rhea stood at the edge of the central clearing, the first rays of dawn spilling silver and amber across the dew-soaked ground. Wolves gathered in concentric circles around her, not out of fear, not to obey, but to listen, to witness, to remember. Kale approached silently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It feels different," he said. "The debt is quiet." "Not gone," Rhea said softly, eyes scanning the horizon. "It will never truly vanish. But it can wait. It can be held in check." Elder Isavel moved beside them, staff tapping steadily. "The captured shadow has taught you all much more than fear," she said. "It revealed betrayal, power, and pain, but also resilience. That knowledge is now yours to carry. Teach it well." The wolves of the pack nodded, heads low in acknowledgement. Some eyes glimmered with tears, some with determination, but all reflected one undeniable truth. They had survived together. Rhea raised her voice, steady and firm. "We have endured the pact, resisted its hunger, and reclaimed our future. No single wolf can hold dominion over another. No shadow can rule without consent. This pack stands on memory, on choice, and on unity." A murmur of agreement rippled outward, growing into a howl that carried across the forest. It was not a call of dominance. It was a song of the pack itself, reborn, unbroken, awake. The debt stirred faintly beneath the mountains, a ripple in the cage, a reminder that vigilance was eternal. Yet it no longer inspired terror. The pack had learned the truth. Power taken by force could always be starved, resisted, and redirected, but only through unity, courage, and unwavering commitment. As the first snowflakes of winter fell, dusting the clearing in white, Rhea watched wolves move freely, some chasing young cubs, others marking territory together in careful harmony. They were not perfect. They would stumble, fight, and falter, but they had been given something far rarer than obedience: choice. Kale leaned close, voice quiet. "We've survived. What now?" Rhea smiled faintly, the weight of their journey pressing against her chest but not breaking it. "We build. Teach. We honor those we've lost. And we remember, always remember, that freedom is earned, not given. That is how we will protect what remains." Above, the moon rose, pale and unwavering, reflecting on snow and stone. The captured shadow pulsed once, silver light spilling like a blessing. It had revealed the past, forced confrontation, and exposed every betrayal, but in doing so, it had illuminated the path forward. The pack held together, not in fear, not in rage, but in solidarity, echoing across the mountains, across the valleys, across the generations. Freedom had been reclaimed. The debt had been contained. And the pack's journey, though far from complete, was finally their own. The forest held its breath, and listened,